Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Matchbox Talks. I'm here today with Dr. Banu Murtaza, the founder and chief matchmaker, and her husband, Sidi Nader Khan, on the topic of staying married, step-parenting, and what does Islam have to say about that?
Why is everybody looking at me first? Like, here, you say something, you mess up, and then we'll come in and correct you. Okay, here goes. I think there was this thread on Facebook that somebody commented on how the sister posted about how women are more willing to accept stepchildren from her husband's side, but men are less willing to do so. And she was airing some frustration, and all these people started commenting on it. And it was weird because you had a lot of women commenting on how this is just how it is. And you had a lot of men commenting on how that's just how men are. But it just sounded really wrong to me. It sounded weird because the Prophet ﷺ, by one narration, had 2 stepchildren, by another had 5. Sayyidah Khadija had, and that's just with Sayyidah Khadija, with other wives is different, right? But with Sayyidah Khadija, by one narration, she had 2 children from her previous 2 marriages, and 5 by another narration, right? And by all accounts, his treatment of his stepkids, sons and daughters, was but like his love and his mercy, which is nothing like ours is like, how do you compare ours to his, right? He's giving his love and his mercy and his compassion to all of these stepkids, right? And so when we have that in our tradition, I don't know where this came about, how, this weird notion of men will not accept it from their wives' side or something like that. It just sounded really weird to me.
Where do you think, though, I mean, that's a good one, where do you think that's come from?
I'm not sure. I commented on this, right? And I posted it about the Prophet ﷺ having stepchildren. And a lot of people end up liking it, which is great, but likes don't do anything. And, I mean, the discussion is still carried on. I'm not sure exactly where that comes from. But, I mean, again, in those times, how many times a woman was married before didn't matter. How many times a man was married before didn't matter, right? There were other considerations that came into the picture, right? Why that has become an issue today, I don't know. It just sounds really weird to me, and I'm not sure why that's there.
I mean, I have certain theories to posit about why it's there. I think, from experience, I can definitely say that as much as I don't like making generalizations, sometimes women are more willing to accept a more difficult situation and are willing to compromise more and are willing to give a little bit more than guys are. And I think
that's fair.
And I say this as the step parent here, like, because I am a step parent, and I know that I've had comments. I've had people say things like, "Oh, I really feel sorry for you that you're a step parent," you know. And
But what did that mean?
I got really angry because I was like, "Do you understand how much I love and get from my children? Like, these are bonuses." And for me, when he told me that he had children, when we were having a conversation, I thought, great, bonus, because I got married later in life. I was in my 30s, and I had wanted children before I was in my 30s. And so for me, I was like, great, ready-made family, bonus. Like, and I didn't even have to go through all the pregnancy for it.
And just to go back, though, it almost sounds like someone was kind of giving you condolences.
But that's exactly what they were doing. What they were saying is, like, it's such a thankless job. Being a step parent, and I feel really sorry for you.
But being a parent is a thankless job.
Exactly.
You're not doing it expecting anything.
No. And you know, there are elements to being a step parent that are really problematic because of the kind of cultural and stereotypical notions that we have, and the stigmas, and everything from Disney all the way through to sort of
Bollywood.
your Bollywood, the wicked stepmom, the wicked stepfather, all of that. It's a constant theme, right? And I mean, I even hear my own children, my biological children talking about it. And I hear my stepchildren talking about it, actually, like in terms of
Like fairy tales.
of that fairy tale evil stepmother thing, and you know, and so in some respects, coming into that situation, even when you come into it with because prior to getting married, I had spoken to my teachers and I'd said, right, tell me about the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and his relationship with his non-biological children, you know, and it has always struck me that the narration that we have describing the face, the blessed face of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, comes from his stepson.
Allah.
It has always struck me that his grandchildren don't take the narration from their mother, Sayyidah Fatima radiallahu anha. They take it from their uncle, who's the stepson of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. And that is very striking, because he would gaze upon him with such love, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was able to convey that love with such,
Intensity.
all encapsulating intensity. And I
Like
think
drenching it.
yeah. And that's something that has sustained. I mean, literally, the Shama'il became a science based on primarily these two hadith. You know, one by a woman in the desert and one by the stepson of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. And that's very striking because it tells me about that relationship. And so when my teachers would tell me about that relationship, it was really beautiful. And I came into that relationship with a lot of hope and a lot of sort of I gave it so much kind of weight in terms of the importance and the worth that my marriage had, right? Because of the role that it would allow me to play. Having those stereotypes exist within society does impose upon that relationship a lot of problems, though. And even when the people involved aren't necessarily playing out those stereotypes, the environment is constantly pushing those stereotypes into it.
And it shapes perception.
And it shapes perception. And it shapes children's perceptions too, you know. And it like everything from, and which then means that you're second guessing yourself in a way that you wouldn't necessarily second guess yourself for your own children, for example. You know,
right,
you wouldn't,
because of these preconceived notions that are
so
kind of floating around.
Saying to your child, no, you can't have that, because you know it's bad for them, and at 9 o'clock at night, if they're having chocolate, it's going to be an issue, right? It becomes something that you would second guess yourself about saying to a child who's already being told, that you're going to be the meanie, have a stepmother, you know what I mean?
Or a stepdad.
Or a stepfather, etc. Well. So I think as that step parent, you have to navigate that world, you know, and it's not as unproblematic or as sort of untouched as it was at the time of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Not to say that his example doesn't apply, but that at that time, that stigma wasn't.
The social context was different.
In fact, Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu anha was all the more marriageable because she had children. Because in that context, the fact that she had had children that had lived beyond a certain age
was a big deal.
Was a really big deal. Was
absolutely.
actually demonstrative of how marriageable she was, because it meant that her children were healthy and sturdy and things like that, and therefore, you know.
Just to go back to one point though, in terms of people being concerned, right, for you, is that a conversation that you need to have at the outset in terms of, you know yourself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have children. You've never had to raise children. So do you have that discussion with your potential spouse to say,
that was our first conversation.
What's going to be the expectation? How much parenting am I going to do? Because I think that's part of people's apprehension is, how do I know how to do this?
I mean, one thing that really blew me away about this person was that in my very first conversation with her, I told her, look, I'm not going to move from Canada, because my older two kids are here, and maintaining that relationship and making sure that they have a relationship with my parents is important to me. And her response was, I wouldn't think much of a man who didn't give that importance. And they're like, oh, wow, okay. I remember those words, and you don't know this, but I go back to that conversation and read it every now and then. because that's an important conversation for me.
I was still nice to him back then.
I really want to end on this really lovely tone, this point here. It's important to have
Because
that
the thing
discussion
is,
and
like, if
really-
you're not, if you're marrying somebody who won't treat his own children, properly, how do you expect him to treat you properly?
or any of your
Or anybody
potential,
else, right? Like, how do you expect them to fulfill rights and responsibilities towards other relationships if they're already not doing it towards on existing really, really close relationships?
So to close on that, really have those discussions at the outset.
Absolutely.
As the parent, as the potential partner coming into the situation with children, be very clear about where your priorities lie.
And if you can't do that yourself, get Matchbox to do it.
get Matchbox to do it.
I mean, I would say that this topic in particular is something that we could talk about for another 6
Absolutely,
episodes,
absolutely,
right? Because there is so much more to say
unpack
on
There's
it.
a lot to
Absolutely.
unpack. Lot to unpack. in
And
this.
so we would really, really value engaging that conversation with.
Absolutely, and
with
we'll make time for
everybody
it at another opportunity. But I think it's important that you at least have that discussion
Absolutely.
head on, early on.
Absolutely.
I mean, be proud of the fact that you have children and they're a great blessing in your life,
And they're part of you,
and
right.
they're a part of you, and the other person should be open to engaging with that in a way that's not imposed upon by those
Absolutely,
stereotypes, and just
absolutely.
checking those stereotypes within ourselves.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. All right, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the subject. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave us a comment below. See you next time. Assalamu alaikum.